I want the car right here, right now. That is Uber.
Right.
A phone with no buttons. That's iPhone.
Right.
10-minute delivery. Zepto.
Welcome to Tech Bytes with Ash, where we discuss trends in digital technology that support true business outcomes. I'm Ashu Bhatia, a consultant, an author, and a practitioner of all practical insights on your technology investments.
Welcome back to my channel, Tech Bytes with Ash. Today, I'm very proud to welcome another guest on my podcast. His name is Sukumar Rajagopal. He's the founder and CEO of Tiny Magiq, a digital disruptor startup, which is doing so much in the area of GenAI and how to really imbibe it into the lives of enterprises and consumers by doing things around behavioral science and combining technology with mindset engineering. Very exciting to see how they're trying to really put good digital innovation in the hands of final consumers and enabling enterprises to get there. So let's take a look and dive right in. So Sukumar, thanks again for joining and taking the time this evening. I am really excited to talk to you about things that you're doing, and I really feel that the audience is going to have a blast and learn so much from you today. So thanks again for taking the time.
Oh, thank you.
So I think right away we'll jump in, Sukumar. I think with your elaborate, career, the first thing I'm always curious for the audience to get to know is the person behind, the leader behind such innovation. So talk to us a little bit about your journey. I mean, you've had so many years of consulting, technical, digital leadership, and then you've been running this digital startup for so many years. Talk to us a little bit of how all that happened and what was the motivation.
Yep, sure. That's a great question, Ashu, to kick things off. So right out of college from BITS Pilani, I joined TCS, where I would say my foundations in software engineering were created. I still remember and practice many of those things. But a big career shift happened when I joined Cognizant as amongst the first 4 or 5 account managers / client partners. So I switched to a P&L role with sales targets and things like that, which as a technical professional, I was not very comfortable with. I did have some kind of a meltdown because I couldn't really handle that situation. And I used to come home and cry to my wife, who incidentally was also working for Cognizant. But I came out of that a new man with a new appreciation for people. So that is also the day this happened sometime in 1998 when I took the vow to be a mentor. And the rest of my life I have been a mentor. And I'm fortunate to say that mentoring is a key approach that we still use in Tiny Magiq as we help companies do disruptive innovation. Right? I was a global CIO, global head of innovation. I was head of manufacturing and logistics in North America, $100 million P&L. Wow. So I've had wide-ranging experiences, right? So by some good fortune, I was able to quit the corporate Cognizant company at the peak of my career and then start this firm with my co-founders. That's a short brief.
Yeah. No, great journey. I think, as we all learn, as you said, mental breakdown and learning about people, because people are the toughest, resources to manage, right? It's easy to manage hardware, software. It'll always do something, input, output, but people are unpredictable. So, and you have to deal with what their emotions and their behaviors are. And I think we'll get very quickly into that. So let's jump right in. So, of course, with Tiny Magiq, I was, I think you and I have talked about it. So you're combining new technologies like GenAI with almost emotional intelligence and doing mindset engineering, if you will, right? So talk to us about that, because I read about your framework that it's warp speed imagineering. You're bringing technology and mindsets together to do something very quickly for disruptive innovation, not incremental change. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the work or the key insights for us, which goes back to the 25 years of studies and research that I've done in innovation. So as the head of innovation and the global CIO at Cognizant, I was able to run 2 $1 billion transformations in parallel with frugal methods. In fact, my boss, the CFO, told me zero new dollars in your budget. It was one of the most brilliant people I have worked for, a person by name Gordon Coburn. So we took that challenge up. So if I look back in time, my own career, why I had that meltdown, and I can look back, look at the various. So I've studied 1,000 disruptors to create this jointly with my team, create this methodology, which goes to the heart of how anyone can do disruptive innovation. But what is the key element? It's mindset. So my co-founder Kumaran is famous for saying this. Right? It illustrates this mindset principle very well. If all it takes is the availability of treadmills to be fit, every one of us will be fit because there are treadmills everywhere. And we all know vast majority of people don't do anything about that fitness, which is unfortunate. But it boils down to that keyword mindset.
Right.
So I was developing a metaphor for how to think about it. I haven't talked much about this. I believe we have a mindset multiplex in our head. Right? For each thing, there's a different mindset. It's not like we have one mindset. We have a different mindset for different things. Although there may be some, at the brain level, there may be some commonality. So let's come to generative AI. And I would love to poll your audience if your podcast allows that.
Sure.
But I asked this question when is one of the first questions I ask in my programs. Do you think generative AI is a smart intern or an Einstein at your desk? And what is your answer?
So a poll from me would be that, I've been, the more I use this technology, right? And of course, the more we help clients use it, definitely a smart intern, but much more than that. I wouldn't say it's an Einstein as yet for me. It does, because it all depends on the questions I'm asking right now, right? How much I poke the technology is how it comes back with something that, yes, does amaze me. So as someone said, it's not only a smart intern. Think of it as a colleague. All of us have different levels of intelligence, however we define it. But this one is definitely got some things, and it's evolving as we speak, like all of us. So the mindset is, can I collaborate with it? Is how I look at it.
Yeah, that's a fair answer. And I would say, from what I have seen so far, 95% of the people that I speak to would lean on the side of smart intern. But the actual answer is that it is an Einstein at your desk. Last week, ChatGPT, I have felt that it is an Einstein at my desk ever since ChatGPT 3.5 was rolled out. Last week, O3 dropped from ChatGPT. It scores 130 plus on the standard IQ test.
Wow.
That puts it in the Mensa category in the top 2%. So clearly, even if you go by raw IQ, not to mention that it can pass the bar exam, MBA exam.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not been able to challenge it so much that it has no answer for anything. Clearly, Einstein itself is not a sufficient metaphor, but I use that to provoke the thinking.
Right.
So the first mindset shift that I advocate is think of it as an Einstein at your desk. And that can't be done by regular prompt engineering. Like you said, the quality of the questions, which is nothing but the prompt. We have developed a new prompting strategy called expertise augmented generation, or the expert lens prompt, which allows us to rapidly create these agents that can allow you to spot the GenAI opportunity, solve problems. All of those techniques we have been teaching. So we have been able to communicate our methodologies and frameworks to generative AI. So we are like a layer we have built, but it is entirely a different form of prompt engineering. So that is the first mindset shift. So I'll stop here so that you can interject and we can have a conversation.
No, this is great because to your point, I think, yes, it's definitely an Einstein at the desk. It's definitely intelligent to know how to get the data, sift through the patterns and give you another pattern. Because again, we all think of it, right? cognition is something, it's like a loop, right? We observe, we do, we learn, we remember mostly. Sometimes we forget as humans, but that loop keeps on going on the learning journey. But when you talk of changing mindset, I think the biggest thing that people, and I did ask some questions beforehand, was that how do you, because humans have grown through so much journey. The technology is learning at a very, very fast pace because technology can do that. It's faster than the human brain in crunching and remembering. How do you combine these two for truly disruptive information? And what that means is humans are guided not only by execution, but before that by intent, right? So somewhere this Gen AI is also learning emotions, behaviors, and intent, and then has to collaborate, right? I mean, I don't know if you've observed some of that, but would love to get your perspective on how that can be leveraged or companies already doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure many companies are attempting this, but we have been at it in the process. Generative AI is the latest tool, and it is a remarkable tool, like I said. But there is a mindset and a method. If you go back to the fitness example, you do need to have a mindset, but you still need to learn how to lift the weights, what exercise you should do for what muscle. There is a method.
Yes.
We can't. And I have made this mistake. I would go to the gym, randomly lift some weights and claim that I've done
I'm
exercise.
getting healthy.
Yeah. Of course, I'll come back from the gym and eat 3 additional portions, saying I have burnt the calories. So there is a mindset and a method.
Yeah.
Now, the mindset, interestingly enough, can only be changed if you act according to the new mindset that you are adopting. So if you want a disruptive innovator's mindset, you have to produce a disruptive innovation in your organization. So we take people through an 8-week program, teams of people, which we call pods, because essentially innovation is a collaborative venture. So we form what these pods, which are our client teams, and we take them in an 8-week program from a blank slate to a disruptive innovation in their job. Now, how are we able to do that rapidly? Because previously we used to teach the same disruptive innovation method. I will try to describe one of the key elements shortly. And then it was up to the mentees to actually use the technique and do it. Now with generative AI, we give them an AI mentor that helps them and holds them to the process of discovering the opportunity using our principles. So we can do this much faster. So the summary of this mini question is that I have to act according to the new mindset. If I want to be a fitness person, I have to do a fitness exercise every day. Then only my mindset will change.
Right.
If I did it once in a while, like I used to do, my mind, subconscious mind is not going to accept that. That's mindset has changed. So this is the essential secret of changing mindset.
But that's a key. That's like $1 billion question, right? When you're doing real transformation, yes, systems, processes, people, right? You've got the 3 legs to the stool. You can get the systems. I think that's somewhat the easy part. Processes take some time. People, again, and that's where the whole science of us, even when you're consulting or products or whatever, that it's the change management. And this sounds like it's a little different than traditional change management, because to your point, and this is great that your coworker mentioned the treadmills, right? Like you can buy them, you can use them for the first 2-3 months, but if you don't use it and you don't get the mindset behind it, it won't happen. So hence, in fact, it's funny that as you and I talked just yesterday, I think I read some news from China that they're going to induce data and AI as a curriculum for 6-year-olds in kindergarten onwards, which was a very bold step to say that let them interact, data and AI fluency, at least let them know what it is. Amazing. And see where that goes. So the mindset is an unbelievable thing, because the computers and the systems are going to do what they do. It's the humans that have sometimes barriers, right, to accepting and adopting that. So give us an example, like what are some behavior blockers that you've seen in some of these frameworks that you've helped, pods learn, that doesn't let them like go and deep dive into really becoming a collaborative technology that it can be?
Yeah. So the point is, to start with, right, think of it as an Einstein. No, it's not enough if you think of it as an Einstein. You need to be able to extract that kind of work out of it. So we teach that. That's that expert lens prompting. Now, the next thing is to materialize the opportunity into a vision, into a software. We are also teaching vibe coding.
Okay.
You might have heard vibe coding.
Yeah.
Now, the term itself is less than 8 weeks old.
Right.
But we have been practicing vibe coding. Actually, the term imagineering at warp speed, I believe, is a better term for vibe coding. But then the vibe coding has gone viral.
Right.
So, imagineering warp speed is nothing but vibe coding. So, today I can materialize an application that fits my vision in 1 or 2 hours. That too, mostly about my thinking, which I split about 15-20 minutes over the 3-4 days, and I have a fully developed. So, you materialize the vision.
Right.
And we also teach storytelling to pitch that to your client executives. Because one of the biggest problems we have is we may have done an innovation, but we don't know how to sell it to people.
Mm-hmm.
Many times that is a gap, right? So we cover that also. So this is how we go from a blank slate. And there is one important secret of disruptors that we discovered,
Mm-hmm.
which personally to me came as a complete surprise, and it surprises everybody when I say it to them, that disruptors don't solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
They solve something else. Because if you take any disruptive, tell me some disruptive innovations off the top of your head that you think are disruptive.
At the time, it was blockchain, of course, and then, of course, it went into the winter freeze of crypto because
Take some consumer examples so that our audience can relate.
So something like at one time, geolocation used to be a problem when cell phones couldn't know which towers and all. But once that thing was ironed out, so many applications came out of it, right? Whether it's Uber or Ola and things like that. So that's another B2C one that's pretty out there.
So let's take Uber as an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The geolocation is the underlying technology for Uber or Ola. But if you speak to people, including yourself and myself, we didn't ask for Uber.
Right.
Because we didn't see the problem.
Right.
Now, Uber is a particularly interesting case which I've studied a great deal. I don't know if you have spoken to your grandparents and people of that age group. How did they hail bullock carts and horse carts? The same way as we were hailing cabs. So that situation has been with us for 1,000 years or more, ever since bullock carts and horse carts came into play. Nobody spotted the problem, but Kalanick and Camp did. Now you take Airbnb. Take any of the modern. In India, Zepto is like propelled like a rocket ship. I don't believe any of us asked for a 10-minute delivery. We didn't even see the problem. In fact, I was talking to my family. Big Basket would tell us, we will come between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. or between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. and we have to make ourselves available.
Right.
We didn't see that as a problem.
Right.
Now I push a button in the 7th minute, the Zepto person is outside the door. Now, whether that creates new problems for the environment, let's keep that aside. I'm talking about disruptive thinking.
Yeah.
So the important thing is it's not a problem, what we call as a performance undersupply. It's a new phenomenon that we have spotted and we have named. So disruptors spot performance undersupply and solve for that. This is why disruptions always come to take us by surprise. ChatGPT being the most recent case of it. Well, all of the underlying technologies, I would say 4 out of the 5 underlying technologies were invented in Google. But Google didn't come up with ChatGPT.
Right.
So this is always the case with, and none of us asked for ChatGPT.
Right.
So a customer specified disruptive innovation, there is no example of it in the history of disruptive innovation.
Interesting.
It is always the disruptor spotting a performance undersupply that no one has spotted and going after it. So now how do you spot performance undersupply?
Exactly.
We have developed some techniques to help you. Now we have AI agents which will help you. You can find the performance undersupply in like 5 seconds.
Wow.
So tools
Wow.
like that we have developed.
So that's interesting because, as you said, if performance undersupply is, and you're right, right? It's sometimes a consumer doesn't know what he or she wants. And that's because they've not perceived if they've lived around that process, right? So whether it was bullock carts or someone telling you that they'll come in a 2 hour window and now it's a 10-minute window. And now people are going to say that, just all disruptors try to push the boundaries. They do, right? Because they're trying to say maybe consumers want a 1 minute or 5 minutes supply. Or sometimes in a B2C retail, which is over the web or mobile, they're also saying that let's predict what you will need on a Monday morning, right? So by Sunday, we know that you would have used your eggs and your milk in the fridge. So let's just deliver that to you. If you don't use it, we can return it through our reverse logistics right away. So people are pushing those boundaries too. But then the question becomes, how do you, to your point, if you use AI or Gen AI, and you're actually leveraging that to understand the problem domain for your consumers, the industry that you're playing in, or the part of that industry that you're maybe kind of leveraging, how do you prioritize some of these ideas? Because AI can go in many directions. You still need a human in the loop, do you think, to look at that and prioritize the top 5 that are worth investing in as an innovative company?
Yeah, that's a good question. We primarily work in B2B environment, not in B2C environment. I use B2C environment so that people can relate to the examples.
Sure.
Because if I say B2B, everybody is in a different industry and they are going to say, oh, that doesn't happen in my industry.
Yeah.
Or whatever. They can't relate to that.
Yeah.
So B2C examples are useful to learn. Now, HBR wrote an article 2-3 years ago. I think just after ChatGPT came. I don't remember the exact date. They said that there is everyday AI and game-changing AI. I believe the smart intern view of the world leads to everyday AI. Which is, I'm writing an email to my client executive, whatever, CXO, I will get ChatGPT to write it, tweak here and there and send it. I'm preparing a PowerPoint deck for a quarterly review. I will prepare. I have a loosely formed idea. I get that. I will get the images generated out of that. This is all everyday AI thing.
Yeah.
And I believe anybody who doesn't use it even for this purpose is already obsolete.
Right.
But game-changing AI is a whole new ball of wax.
Yeah.
You can't create game-changing AI without using disruptive innovation principles, which is what we teach. So the priority of it is starkly visible because of the performance undersupply. There's a lot of things. We say, hey, we have to go after extreme objectives.
Wow.
Let's say you're doing some process which takes 30 days today. Can you do it in 30 minutes? Now, you set that objective, your mental gears start shifting differently. Now, instead of 30 days to 30 minutes, let's say you went from 30 days to 3 days. It's still a big revolution.
Right. Right.
So if you look at the disruptors who we have studied, more than 1,000, they all have an extreme objective.
Wow.
I want the car right here, right now. That is Uber.
Right.
The phone with no buttons. That's iPhone.
Right.
10-minute delivery, Zepto. Instant payment transfer, UPI, which is India's world-changing fintech revolution.
Right.
So all of them have extreme. So performance undersupply is one signature. Extreme objective is another. There are many more signature elements of a disruptive innovation that it becomes obvious that we have to pursue that.
Right. So that's interesting because what you mentioned is that when you come with extreme objectives, which means that you are telling the human brains to cut their constraints, if you will, and not think through just the constraints that you're living in right now, right? And from 30 days to 30 minutes, whatever you achieve in that, however I know that you have a patented framework, but however you walk through the pods doing that, is there a play of not only technology and process, and I'm sure that comes around, and then you're trying to maybe automate that to be very quick and impactful in the outcome. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, correct. So it's a combination of software, mindset change, instruction, learning new concepts, practicing it directly on the job, not in a case study.
Right. Right.
See, typically when you learn something new, you do this something called capstone project. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
heard this
Mhm.
terminology.
Yeah.
It's usually some kind of synthetic project.
Right.
And then you do that, you get your certificate, and 3 years later, you've forgotten what that certificate was about.
Right. Right.
We can directly change your job, how you're doing your job, assuming you're open-minded enough.
Right.
Right? That is always there, right? What we are teaching, some people will resist and they may not adopt.
Right. Right.
That is there. But as a team, let's say this is why we work with teams.
Makes
It's
sense.
okay, one person is resistant, but the other people will pick it up and run with it.
Pick it up, and that's where the human innovation still comes to work. Because I used to
Absolutely.
work a lot with graphic designers at one time, and they came up with this whole methodology of design think. It was called the double diamond. It was very similar to say remove constraints, but what you have done is, if you take a real problem, then the extreme objectives thinking will of course push some boundaries, but then the collaboration of humans with what they're trying to do for something that they need becomes real, right? Because I don't know what your experience, and I would love to hear your point of view, that hesitation to high speed innovation is all, of course, as you said, in the mindset. But how do people can go through your 8-week boot camp and kind of get through that. How do you make sure it sticks and imbibes and it becomes that whole culture where that innovation is happening, at least for that function that you've trained, right? Have you seen some things that, like those atomic habits that tend to stay, or something of that sort?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Ashu. So we are a practitioner of tiny habits method of Professor B.J. Fogg of Stanford University. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
In fact, James Clear's Atomic Habits post-dates Professor Fogg's work. And I've been a student of Professor Fogg. I'm a tiny habit certified coach.
Oh,
I've been a practitioner of this technique for the last 13 years approximately.
nice.
So we use habit formation techniques. Now, we can talk a lot more about that, but the essence of it is, if you actually produced an outcome, your own mindset will change.
Right. Yeah.
For example, I was doing, so through the tiny habits method, I started with doing 2 push-ups when I started. Okay, I'm a 57-year-old man. How many push-ups at one go do you think I can do?
So you went above 2 for sure. So that's clear.
I do 60.
Wow.
I did it today also. Now, that is just one small achievement, you should say. Although it is a big achievement, I have a lot of fitness achievements over the last 13 years. That when I went from 2 to 50 in under 1 year, I became a new man.
Yeah.
I start to look at things differently.
Mm.
So in that same way, when a pod team achieves an extreme object, they can't achieve the full extreme objective in 8 weeks.
Right.
Let's be reasonable, but they will be in the path to that. So they can see they can go there because they built what we call as the limited production software,
Right.
which is in line with that extreme object.
Excellent.
So the best way to change is to behave as the new mindset.
Right. Now, this is great. I mean, again, this is so interesting because I think, as you said, going from 2 push-ups to 15 to 60 is clearly what is needed in things that you're trying to accomplish, right? So you don't build Rome in a day and all that kind of stuff. But the key is, I think one statement that you made was that achievement changes mindset. Once you achieve something, then you know that you can do this. And that's what imbibes the humans to kind of keep continuing. This is great. Again, as I said, we can go on, and this is awesome for the audience to really understand that, the more you imbibe technology in your work, you still, like the treadmill analogy, a tool. I mean, it's funny. It's a little crass, but one of my, partners used to say, "A fool with a tool is still a fool." So, end of the day, you have to know what you want to do, and then imbibe some of these mindsets and frameworks to get there. So, again, Sukumar, this is phenomenal. I definitely want to wrap it up a little bit, but I want to, just for the audience benefit, since you do so much work within innovation and stuff, any books or website that you recommend the audience? I see tons of books behind you, and you mentioned that you've got a whole library upstairs as well.
Including your book, Rachu.
Oh, thank you. But like any book that you would like to, recommend to the audience to kind of follow on this track.
Yeah, I have a long list of books I can recommend, but there are 2 or 3 books that I would say changed my mind at a fundamental level. One is obviously Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, Lean Startup by Eric Rice, Tiny Habits by Professor B.J. Fogg. Those are the top 3 I would.
Question before we go. Where can the audience follow you? Like, can we share your LinkedIn or what? LinkedIn? Yep. Share your LinkedIn handle there as well. Again, Sukumar, thank you so much.